Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a freezing cold day today in Seymour, Indiana. Hey, we got a special guest coming in today. He's going to do a dart frog build. We're going to record it all. We might even put it up on YouTube, and you can be the first one to subscribe and like and be part of our page and grow with us. So let's get going. It's going to be a big day. He'll be here in a couple minutes, and we'll get the info flowing. Hey guys, so we're gonna do a dart frog build today. Got Kevin Gribbins here today. Kevin, could we tell a little bit about yourself so the viewers know?
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a professional herpetologist. I'm an academic. I work at the University of Indianapolis, and I've been breeding dart frogs for about 20 years now. And so we'll get to the species that I'm utilizing today, but we're going to show you how to set up a tank, basically, so that you can raise your own dart frogs.
Okay, what are you going to need from the store? As far as I've got Josh's Frogs, some Josh's Frogs products.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. The one thing that you want to start with is something that will collect water. We call it a sump.
Okay.
Right, so that you don't get a lot of mold growth in the dirt, and you don't get a large bacteria bloom that you don't want, right? Or typically you deal with mold is the big problem, like it will show up. And so I usually like to put an inch or two of gravel or something. I use large pebbles that'll just collect water.
Okay. The closest I have to that is like vermiculite.
Vermiculite works beautifully. Yeah.
This is what we use. I put it in the bottom for tarantulas that require a lot of humidity. So.
Yeah. So these guys require about 90 to 95% humidity. They are from tropical rainforest in a place between Suriname and what's called Brazil. So they have to have very high humidity.
So we can use this for the bottom layer.
Yeah, about an inch. Exactly.
About an inch. Okay. Yeah. And come on this way, and we'll check out what we could use for the top layer. All right, so we've got sphagnum moss. This is like a Josh Frogs product. We're not sponsored by Josh Frogs. It's just we got it here, right? So
it's a great company. I actually buy a lot from it. So that's probably what, a combination of dirt and maybe some coconut bark or something like that.
Yeah, like coconut fiber. Yeah. It's got a little bit of vermiculite in it too. It resists molding. Okay. Then we got some eco earth. We're a little low right now, but we can use a lot of sphagnum moss if we need to. Or do you not kind of go with that?
Yeah, I like moss. Typically, I collect live moss myself, and then I put it down. But that works perfect. Yeah, I like some dead leaves and usually at least one living plant. Just some hiding spots, right?
Yep.
Because these guys are about 2 months out of the water, so they're still a little shy or they get scared really easily. So
okay. I do have some dead leaves, of course, from Josh's Frogs also. Yeah.
Ah, perfect.
Right.
Yeah, they look like.
Hey, yay.
Yeah. Yeah, those are those almond lengths, probably. Those are perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to use them for our fire belly toads in their water. Okay, it kind of darkens the water.
Yeah,
it makes it feel good. Yeah,
it lowers the pH. Yeah, it's perfect. It softens the water. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll use some of this, and some sphagnum moss.
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right, let's get started. I'll tell you by one short story of dealing with dart frogs.
Sure, yeah.
So I've had Pac-Man frogs, various frogs. I was able to successfully breed fire-bellied toads, tomato frogs, pixie frogs. Pixie frogs are probably the best beginner frog, I think, for younger people to start with. They're super hardy and super fun. They stay out. So I know a lot about frogs. So I'm going to bring in dart frogs. Oh, I know I have to just keep them moist. And half of them died in 4 days. And it made me so gun-shy.
Yeah.
It made me so gun-shy because they're not cheap. And,
right.
So after that, I said, I am not going to deal with dart frogs until I met you.
Oh, okay. So I brought some eggs along with me. So these guys, these are eggs fresh. They were just laid 2 days ago. So that's what the egg looks like. And what's neat is with this particular species is you can watch them develop, right? You can sit this on your desk at room temperature and watch the eggs develop. They develop in about 12 to 14 days. And so at day 14, you'll have little tadpoles. I can show you what they're going to look like here. These are eggs that are this is about 8 days. So you can actually see the little tadpoles and little yolk sac. You can see them even moving around. Oh, that's nice. You can see them moving around. These guys have little gills under a microscope. And when they hatch, you just fill this up with water and then transport them to, Tupperware, right? Mm-hmm. So, here you can see some of I'll put them on top of here, some of the different stages of tadpoles. So we got the one with legs and a tail is about a month and a half in. And obviously you have a froglet that's about metamorphed. You can see he's got a little piece of tail, and then they got a younger tadpole there. So they're in the tadpole stage for about 12 weeks. The adults, the females, they lay eggs. They lay between 5 and 12 eggs about every 2.5 weeks once they start doing it. Mm-hmm. And they typically reach sexual maturity in about 2 years, just under 24 months. So that's when the males start calling. The frogs I have for you today are about 2 months out of the water. I can show you you come up here with the video camera. They're a little wild, so we gotta watch them because they like to jump around. Aww. As you can see, they're just fantastic, and I try to give you a bunch of variety. So I love this one. Mm-hmm. So you're lucky I'm giving this one away. This one has no spots, man, and that's pretty rare to get one that is all blue. Yeah, like that. So, but you can see it's neat. You can actually ID your frogs based on their on the pattern of their spots, because it's like a fingerprint. And so
I would be able to name each one of these frogs and be able to
exactly. Yep, and keep up with which one's male, which one's female.
So do you know at this age, male and female?
No, it won't be till about probably 12 months where you'll be able to see the males have heart-shaped toe pads.
Oh.
So they look like a little heart.
Do you need a magnifying glass?
Yeah, you'll probably need something, or just a photograph, right? Take a really close photograph of the feet and blow it up on your phone. Oh. Females are typically more round. Females also end up being larger. You'll see. You'll see that they start carrying eggs.
All right. Well, I know you don't got a lot of, so I know you don't got a lot of time, so let's get right into the build.
All right, so what we'll do is start with, for our vermiculite for our sump, right, so that we can collect water. And again, this stuff's pretty dusty, but are you okay with me using a majority or a lot of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is...
Probably what I want to do here, before I get too excited, is place our plant, right? I like to keep the plants, if I can, in their original container until they get too big. But typically they won't if you're pruning them anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And so, we put this down so that it, it'll drain all right. We'll probably have to put a little, let's see. Probably going to put just a little bit more of that in there, just to be safe. Again, we want to make sure we hold lots of moisture, right? A lot of water will collect at the bottom and then evaporate slowly. I think that'll be good.
So ideally, though, if I would have had gravel, I could have used gravel for the bottom.
Gravel, pebbles, right? River rock. I use river rock a lot.
Okay.
Especially in a bigger, like if you want to do like a 55 or 100-gallon tank or something really big, then you want to use maybe larger gravel. The other thing you can do with some species, and this is not particular with this one, is you can put a heater in there for water. Actually, raise this up a little bit and have a real sump where you could actually control temperature if you really need to.
Right.
These guys, what's beautiful about this particular species is they're perfect at room temperature. I mean, they're used to about 70 degrees, 70 to 75 degrees. So you don't really have to worry about.
So no fancy heat light under the tank. As long as your room temperature, you should be good.
Matter of fact, if they get too hot, above 84 degrees or 80 degrees, it's not a good thing. They don't do very well. So they like it a little cooler.
Nice.
Which I really like, because it's easy to take care of them. It's like having a garter snake, right? It's really warm. Okay, next so this will collect our excess water when we're spraying and whatnot. So obviously the dirt will support leaves and other plants. We'll probably cover most of it with some moss and leaves. The one thing you want to be careful of, if you're going to use soil, say from Walmart or from Lowe's, and it's got fertilizer in it, that fertilizer can burn their feet or their skin. So you got to be really careful with that.
Yep.
So that's why it's really nice to use something that's safe, right? That's safe. Well, it is dusty, isn't it? There are some really cool live mosses out there too that you can actually collect. Some people use live moss, but you want to be careful where you collect it. Again, you don't want it somewhere where there's been fertilizer, right? Or people like treat their lawns with pesticides. So collecting some from forest or whatnot is a good place to do it.
So I've got this to wipe down the inside of the tank afterwards.
Make this the front, right? So we can. I think they're gonna like it.
Okay, so it was a little dusty, right? So we'll remove the dust so they don't have to deal with that.
Again, the water that you want to use for the tank, I typically use a cheap spring water, from a store.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to use faucet water unless you treat it for chlorine. Chlorinated water will kill the frogs. Typical of any aquatic or amphibious animal. You want to be careful with your water source. So I typically use bottled spring water, but you can actually dechlorinate water with the typical chlorine chemicals that they use for fish is fine. The softer the water, the better for moss, if you're going to do living moss. But for us, we don't need to worry too much about that. It's fine to use paper towel, particularly that paper towel that's white like that with no pigments in or no color in it, right? That way the inks won't bother the frogs. And what you'll notice immediately is, especially if you put just a typical fluorescent aquarium light on here, is you'll start getting algae growth.
Okay.
I typically leave it, except for the front, right? Because it kind of pulls you to the front, unless you have people that are going to look from the sides. But you can, again, it wipes off pretty easily. Typically does.
So algae growth isn't a
bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. Okay.
Not for me. It never has been. So, all right. So we probably want to cover up. I personally like covering up the soil for the most part. We can use the moss to do that. You can actually have some of the moss up in my container if you really want it. These clippings, these are philodendron clippings. These are really good. These are, I call them spider plants, I guess. You can have it too. I'm not going to realize it, but I just show everybody. They're called philodendron. You can buy them at anywhere. I bought mine at Walmart, but I have them at school also. I'm just going to pull this out of here. But see, it immediately roots itself. Do you see that? So it grows roots out of the stem really nicely. So see? So you can actually sit that right in there, and it'll just grow into the water and then grow out, and this thing will go nuts. I mean, you put a little aquarium light on top of here, and within about 2 months, you'll be cutting it out. So I can stick that in there too if you want.
Yeah, sure.
It's up to you. So let's put this everywhere. So this stuff is great. So it absorbs water, right? And it holds water really well. It's a type of non-vascular plant that holds water really well. And you can see it dries out, and it'll hold the water really well for the frogs. The frogs will bed down in it and sleep. And this light color, they'll look really nice. With the blue color, they'll look really, really nice. I'm going to go ahead and use all of this if you're okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can go out and collect your own green moss if you want. The moss you find out in a creek bed or in a forest. Just make sure that you're not collecting it from your yard where your mom sprayed pesticide to kill, right? To kill, a lot of the insects or whatnot. So you don't want that to happen, or you'll harm the frogs. These frogs are very susceptible to chemicals, so you got to be really careful with them because they can absorb things through their skin. So again. if you're like really worried about your bad experience with the last group of frogs you had, I shop at Kroger or JC, and I buy the Kroger spring water, and that's what I use for all my frogs, because that's just, I've always used that, and I've never had any trouble with it.
Kroger spring water.
And it's 89 cents for a gallon, so
and then you're perfect. 100% good.
Yeah. So because I've lost frogs before, and you kind of get superstitious, right? You don't want that to happen. I just want people to realize that they're really easy to take care of once you get a tank set up, and they're really easy to feed, and they do really well, as long as the humidity's right. Shallow water dish, right? Put that in there, and then what we need to do is probably spray this all down really well. And that, I brought a spray bottle. Wait, no.
Now, is that water from Kroger?
It's just Kroger water, Kroger spring water. That's all it is. And one of the many, spray bottles I have in my lab and at home. So
now, will that spring water leave mineral deposits on the side of the?
It can, for sure. But typically, if you're wiping every day, it'll come off really easily. Yeah. Just remember that you only use the water to wipe the inside of the tank, right? There are no cleaners or anything like that. I like the tank to be pretty wet myself, so. This particular frog, again, is really hardy. I mean, it doesn't need 100% humidity all the time, right? So, if you're spraying a little bit every day, and you have water in there that they'll sit in, if you find them sitting in there all the time, then your humidity is probably not high enough, right? But if they're moving around,
the frogs will tell you.
Yeah, they do, exactly.
Yeah.
Particularly these guys will tell you if it's it's too dry, but they'll be hiding a lot. So the greatest thing about this particular group of frogs is they're diurnal, which means they're out during the day, and so they're not hiding like a tree frog. So they're out eating, foraging, they're moving around when you're awake, and that's my favorite thing about them. So. Like a day gecko, right? Some of them are moving around, right?
Yeah.
You might even, tomorrow, if it seems like it's drying out too quick, you actually dump some water in here. Add a little bit of water. You just want to try to don't keep the water line down here, right? Not up into the dirt, or it'll get muddy.
Okay, so if I do find out it's drying out, keep the water level where I can see it here.
Exactly.
Don't raise it up too high.
Exactly, you got it. Leaf litter is great for these guys. They'll hide under it. And let's have this over here. I always like to wet everything down. Everything needs, Okay. So, I think we're pretty good shape. Oh, the philodendron, that's right.
This will take over the whole tank.
It will. Yeah, you can cut it out. It'll take a while. It'll take a month or two.
Quick question. Should, I'm going to glass up. Should I glass off the whole thing, or half of it, or let the moisture decide?
That's a great question. People are afraid to put a piece of glass over here because they're afraid they're going to suffocate the frogs, right?
Okay. Yep.
With live plants and just a strip of light, because these plants that you buy at a reptile show or at Lowe's, they're low light plants. They'll pick up plenty of light for photosynthesis, and they'll produce a lot of oxygen actually. So you can actually put, not worry about covering the whole thing up.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the glass lids you buy from Amazon, I actually take down the back, just to make sure that the frogs don't get out of the back. But so, what do you think? Look pretty good.
I think it's looking good. Yeah.
I think it'll be good for displaying them for sure. And man, they'll stand out really nicely against the yellow background here. So, all right. So when you, we can add some water to the container here in a second. So when you handle these guys, you want to make sure you wet your hands down also, just because the oils in our skin can be kind of toxic. These guys are jumpers, so we got to watch them. I recommend not handling them very often, right? I mean, people want to hold frogs and whatnot, but it's just not good.
You don't think they're getting the enjoyment
This stresses them out tremendously, right? So we want to be as quick as possible. Usually I let them kind of escape on their own, right? Because then they feel safer. And you can see, I love this. You can see the differences in their spots. We put a little light over the top of those, man. Look how good they're gonna look. They look beautiful in there.
So when you're saying put a light over it, not a heat bulb or
Right.
anything like, just something that will show off your frog.
Exactly, a typical fish tank light.
Okay.
Right, with one of your normal fluorescent bulbs. And then again, so you can see this how shallow the dish needs to be, especially for these younger guys. Now we put 6 in here, right?
Yes.
Because they're young. But as they get older, you would probably have to, have no more than 3. Especially if they're females, because they start kind of beating each other up.
Okay. Builds looks good. You're fairly comfortable this as long as I enclose it with glass, keep the humidity up. So now tonight, would I mist in there, or just gauge it from the side of the glass, the moisture on the side of the glass? If it's all misted up around, I'm good, and I can just pull out.
I'd say for the next week, you mist twice a day at least.
Twice a day.
Yeah,
okay.
just to get some water.
Okay.
Or you can add water and then mist once a day. As long as you have some moisture on the sides, you
Right.
should be in good shape.
Don't let them dry out.
Don't, yeah. Yeah. Now, if a frog were to escape on you and you found him still moving around, soaking him in a dish with Pedialyte in particular, just regular Pedialyte that you give an infant who's dehydrated, sometimes it brings him back. But
Okay.
you don't want to, obviously, have to get into that situation. You do that with any of the frogs, actually.
So feeding. All right. So when's the last time you fed these guys?
These guys were fed yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon. Yeah.
Okay.
I feed them once a day, and I throw in plenty of flies. A little trick of the trade, if you have, I'm always worried, I would like to watch each of them eat. Again, so that's why I like to see patterns. So I give, where they're sitting, I would throw a few flies around each of them, and they'll eat immediately. But the one thing that I always, my wife hates about these guys are fruit flies, right? The fruit flies get out of the tank and they're crawling everywhere. You put a piece of apple in there and they stay in the tank.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I have that problem sometimes when,
So I use a little petri dish or a Tupperware dish, put a nice chunk of apple in the middle, and all the flies go there. Matter of fact, the frogs hang out around the apple because they know that the flies end up there.
Awesome.
So-
Great tip. Yeah.
I think the tank looks great.
All right. Well, hey, appreciate you coming out. I'm going to stay in contact with you on how things are going, and it looks great, and I'm super excited. Maybe I can actually become a successful dart frog guy instead of one that was unsuccessful.
I'm sure you can.
All right. Well,
I can do it. You can do it. Anyway.
I'll keep texting you. I'll asking you
please.
questions. Hey, it's been a couple days since the dart frog build. I'm super excited. I think I got it. I think I can raise dart frogs. I hope you can too. Thanks for watching the video, and thank you, Kevin. You are awesome for showing us all. We'll catch you next time.